Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tom Worth Jr. And in yesterday's video, I talked about 5 factors that were not existing in the 2020 election and that do exist now and that can have an impact on this race. I left out one factor that is, in my opinion, and in the Trump campaign's opinion, the largest factor of all that did not exist in 2020 and that does exist this time around. It deserved its own video. I didn't want to just lump it in with the 5 other things. And I think we all know what that issue is. I've discussed it a number of times on this channel. I mean, it's big. And if you have any doubt as to how big it is, all we have to do is look back to the 2022 midterms. In the summer of 2022, we had the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade after almost 50 years, which legalized abortion nationwide. Roe v. Wade did back in 1973. What Dobbs did is it took that away. It overturned Roe v. Wade, and it kicked it back down to the state level. And it said, you no longer have that option on a national level. You may have a state that allows abortions. You may have states that don't allow abortions. We're leaving it up to the states. Now, this is an issue, abortion, that may well decide this election. And there are things that are more important than this when polls are taken. And 2 things that come up are the economy and immigration. However, when we look back at the 2022 midterms, we see how important this issue is, because the decision was only like 5 months old at that point. And even then, remember, we have inflation now at the same levels that it was under Trump before COVID hit. Like 2.5%, I think, was the most recent month. So completely normal inflation. It's not killing us now. It did kill us. I mean, that sucks. The prices are higher now. But inflation is completely under control now. As I put a whole video and showed you the stats from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But I found an article by Harry Enton of 538.com fame. He's just a poll hound, poll jockey, much like Steve Kornacki is with MSNBC. These guys, they may have their own political leanings. I don't know what they would be. They keep them to themselves, even though they work for MSNBC, or in the case of Harry Enton, he's now at CNN. They love numbers, and they go and they look at history, they look at trends, they look at what this means. And this article, it's a CNN article from November 13, 2022, and it's called How Joe Biden and the Democratic Party Defied Midterm History. So what he has gone and done is looked at all the elections, and so this was Biden's first midterm, was 2022. And that's always the time when the other party kind of takes their revenge on losing to whoever is in their first term in office now. And it's, he says, actually since 1922, there have been 3 previous instances of the president's party either gaining or not losing any Senate seats in that first midterm. Biden's party picked up a Senate seat, and losing fewer than 10 House seats. And Biden's party lost fewer than 10 House seats. I think it was 5 House seats that they lost. That's only happened 3 times going back 100 years. 1934, 1962, and 2002. And it's big. And one of the reasons it's so big is because the inflation was like 13% or something like that back in fall of 2022. It's at 2.5% now. So And people said the economy was their biggest issue, and Biden's approval ratings were through the floor. They were terrible. And overwhelmingly people said, how do you think the country is on the right track now? Again, this is 2 years ago in 2022, and overwhelmingly the response was no. Don't feel like the country's on the right track. Friggin' 13% inflation that summer, and it was still super high in November. And the president, I have an unfavorable or a very unfavorable opinion of him, and yet his party did historically well in his first midterm. And the thing that happened was that Dobbs decision. It brought people out to vote, and it came down to the state levels as well. The other stat he had in here was governorships. It says, we already know based on projected races that this will be the first time since 1934 that the president's party had a net gain of governorships in his first midterm, in the president's first midterm. And what that tells you is Dobbs kicked it down to the state level. And pro-choice voters now say, I don't want a Republican governor. I don't want someone who either has banned abortion at the state level or will now ban abortion at the state level. So that tells you how monumental this issue is. Now, it's not showing up in the polling as much. You still see the economy as the top issue. But you did then too. And back then, inflation was far worse than it is now. And that would tell you that the economy it's not unusual. Every election, both sides fight over the economy. And this abortion issue, it's new. It's new to this presidential election, and it's not just the normal, arguing about whose economic policies are going to be better, or who cares about you more, or who's going to help you more. We all know the answer to that, but still Trump supporters think he will do a better job on that. I just think this is really big, and it's bigger than anyone forecasted back in the 22 midterms, and it's big now. And people have pointed this out in the comments, and I would say you're right, and I completely agree with that. That's why I'm doing a whole video on this. And if you don't want to take my word for it, take Trump's word for it. He is the guy who single-handedly appointed 3 out of 9 Supreme Court justices based on, will you overturn Roe v. Wade? And when they say yes, he appoints them, and they did it. Now he says, oh, it should be up to the states. I don't actually want it banned on a national level. I think it should be up to the states. So do you go on based on what he did or what he's saying? And then with his running mate, J.D. Vance, said he would absolutely sign a national abortion ban. He said that. Then in the debate, he said, I'm not going to do that. I didn't say that. So are you going to go on what their words are before they're losing on this issue, or go based on what their words are after they're losing on this issue? And I had already mentioned back on September 30, I went to a talk that had a Heritage Foundation economic advisor for Trump and a professor from UT Austin arguing the domestic policy of Kamala Harris. And that guy said, and remember, Trump's playbook says never ever admit defeat. This is a Roy Cohn thing. This is an Adolf Hitler thing. Never ever admit defeat. Never admit you're wrong. Never admit any weakness whatsoever. Well, I guess this Heritage Foundation guy didn't get that message, because he said, if this election is about abortion, we will lose. So everybody knows it. Even the Heritage Foundation knows that they will lose the election if it's about abortion. And it is about abortion for many people. And those are the kinds of people, as we saw in 2022, that will actually get out there and vote. You may be sitting there griping that prices aren't what they were 4 years ago or 2 years ago, even though inflation is right back down again. Is that going to get you to the polls? Well, the economy's on the right track. What are you going to do? You might look at your 401k, see that the stock markets are at all-time highs. You're doing fine there. Are you employed? Well, we have near record employment, so you're probably employed. Are prices high? Yeah, but they shot through the roof over the last 2 years and leveled off months ago, and then they stayed level. And in some cases, with food costs, come down. Not to where they were, but they have come down. And you might forget how terrible people were feeling about things. You go back to November 2022, well, we still had shortages. You remember in 2021 in the fall, looking for cars, new cars, used cars. There were none on any lots, new or used. And then even in summer of 2022, you had some lots getting some cars back, but like not really. They were still almost empty in summer of 2022. And this is what people were experiencing. And house costs had shot up, interest rates had shot up, and people were just really angry and really frustrated. And the country could not be more on the wrong track than it was 2 years ago. And still, Biden's party had historic performance for a first midterm. So, and the only explanation was, well, there's two. One was abortion. The other one was the Trump-backed candidates were getting slaughtered. And now we have Trump himself. so that's pretty cool. Again, I think this is all breaking her way, and all we need to do is go vote. That's it. Just go vote. It's not that hard. The other thing was polls themselves, how right or wrong they are. And Trump has had this, really, out of the ordinary, really outlier performance in 2016, where he wildly outperformed the polls, saying he was going to get killed by a wide margin. But in 2020, they started to normalize. And in 2022, I was reading some poll analysis. Those were historically accurate polls in 2022 for those midterms. So these polling companies are learning, and they are getting better. And that's another reason why, if we are saying that Kamala Harris is up 4 points, in the unbiased, I know you think New York Times poll has got to be just as biased as the New York Times itself. It's not. The New York Times Siena poll, it's one of the few polls that is rated as even. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. That has Kamala Harris up 4 points right now, and with less than a month to go. So 2022, we had the most accurate polls that we've had. That's on a national level. We all know this, but on the battleground states, she's winning enough to get the Electoral College. It's just kind of all breaking her way. It comes down to which side is more motivated to go vote for their person. And the pro-choice, the women's healthcare people, and it's not just women who are worried about themselves. It's women who are worried about, and men who are worried about their daughters, and their options. And when we have the childless cat ladies kind of thing going on with Taylor Swift, now she is someone who hasn't completely stayed out of politics, but she doesn't. I mean, she was in the midst of a tour. She's just flying high, and everybody knows that you have that Republicans are half of your fans and Democrats are half of your fans, and you don't want to openly support a presidential candidate if you don't have to. But Trump just kept putting out all this fake stuff, just saying that she was supporting him, and she doesn't have any children. And eventually she reached her breaking point and just says, you know what? You forced my hand. You're forcing me to endorse Kamala Harris, which, if you know anything about Taylor Swift, you already knew she would be voting for her. But the fact that Trump just lied her into publicly endorsing her and making the comment about being a childless cat lady herself, it just shows you it is in the public consciousness. And these people are going to come out and vote. They're going to vote against Trump. They don't trust him. They don't trust J.D. Vance. They don't trust the guy who literally overturned Roe v. Wade himself. They don't trust the guy who's the other guy, his running mate. Trump picked him after he had already said he would sign a national abortion ban. But we're up to him. He would like to see a national abortion ban. So I don't know. And with all the questions about Trump's cognitive deterioration and his health, and questions about will he make it through a term, these same questions we had about Biden 4 years ago. And Vance is just there waiting in the wings, the puppet of people you don't want our president to be the puppet of. It's just really, it's really all aligning against Trump and Vance and for Kamala Harris. She speaks to this issue whether you are pro-life or pro-choice. The Republicans don't know how to deal with it, and the Democrats do. Specifically, a woman Democrat from California, Kamala Harris, knows exactly how to handle the issue and how to speak intelligently about it. And there's no question where she stands, and that's going to be enough to put her over the top, I think. Those 5 things I mentioned yesterday that'll just be icing on the cake, because those are all breaking for her as well. And I'm feeling pretty good as the days go by. That's it for today, and we'll talk again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.